The oceans are essential for life. We wouldn't be here without oceans. They provide half the oxygen that we need to live. And they provide food and livelihood for billions and billions of people, like my new friend. Oceans support some of the most spectacular arrays of biodiversity and pure natural wonder of any place on Earth. And they are our very best allies in confronting the climate crisis. But they're in trouble. I don't have to tell any of you about this. You know what I'm talking about. Plastic pollution, destructive fishing practices, warming waters, acidification, oil spills, the spread of dead zones. All these threats are chipping away at the very fabric of life in the ocean, and by extension, our planet. And on top of that, next month, we'll resume negotiation rules that, if agreed upon, would allow commercial deep-sea mining to begin, adding yet another threat to the oceans, which are already suffering so much. Today, we have a chance to change course and create a better future for our planet, and we must seize it. We need a global ocean treaty, and we need it now. It is at our own peril that we delay any further. We cannot afford to do that. I urge you, as a mother, a grandmother, and a citizen of this world, set aside the politics, the greed, the special interests, and the inertia that tends to drag big, bold ideas into the ground. Let's get this done for the sake of every animal on Earth. Now, here is our vision. I'm speaking as an activist on behalf of a lot of colleagues here. This is our vision and our hope for you. This treaty should be ambitious. It must be all around fair to everyone, especially the global South. I don't want to be ashamed as someone from the global North that we're so self-interested and so narcissistic that we don't understand why we must share our wealth and our knowledge with the global South on this planet that seems to become smaller every year. The treaty also has to diverge from the previously wildly unsuccessful business as usual model. It should be a milestone. It should be an example of what we can achieve when all nations come together. It should be empowered power. Give the treaty power to create a global network of fully and highly protected ocean sanctuaries so that we can turn the goal to protect at least 30% of our global ocean by 2030 into a reality. This is a goal that your governments agreed to only a few weeks ago in Montreal, and that scientists have been calling for to address our existential crisis of climate emergencies. The treaty should not cede power to particular industry organizations. I'm not going to name names, but you all know what I'm talking about. The treaty must not cede power to existing regional bodies that have already failed to do what this treaty was designed for, which is to protect the ocean. We must consider the interests of all people and all nations, and not look at this agreement as a way to build power for ourselves. I'm speaking on behalf of the global North. Let's not leave this 2-week process feeling ashamed. I don't want to be ashamed that my country stood in the way of fairness and equity and a future. We must consider the interests of all people. To be effective, the treaty needs to provide the necessary financial resources and capacity building to support governments, especially developing nations, to implement it. And that's gonna take some compromise. Oh, that's hard. Compromise is really hard. It's even hard for individual people to compromise. Much harder for a whole government of people. It's a challenge. But my colleagues and I are confident that if anybody can do it for an issue so important to all of our lives, it's this group that is here. Yes. And I personally think that this treaty can represent a profound change in the way we view nature, our relationship to nature, which sees us as being separate from nature. Our Hawaiian brother here so beautifully said, your culture says there's no difference between what lives in ocean and what lives on land. We're a family. This is the mindset that this treaty, I think, can help bring into being. That we relate to the natural world as part of it, not separate, interdependent with the natural world. Instead of viewing nature as something to be monetized, we must start to see it as something precious and mysterious that we don't understand. We have to lose our narcissism, our hubris. We don't understand even a fraction of what is going on in the ocean. How dare we allow it to be destroyed? I think we can learn from the ocean. Sharks, swordfish, whales, dolphin, tuna, octopus. These are magnificent, sentient beings who feel joy. They play. They can be happy. They can suffer loss. We know this now. This isn't just some kumbaya. These are sentient beings. How can we continue hunting them until they risk extinction? How can greed and hubris so blind us to reality? And so I and millions of other citizens of the world beg you, all of you, to negotiate this Global Oceans Treaty. When you do this, do it with love. Put love in your hearts instead of greed and self-interest. Love for our fellow ocean creatures who are allies in our fight against the climate crisis and deserve our respect. Now I would like to invite Anta Diouf